Welcome to Friday's edition of the Petercast. Brent Allen is not here tonight, so it's just me, Ren Dax, coming you to talk about everything that happened Buccaneers football this week. But don't worry, I am not alone. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. I am with, I already forgot his name, I'm the worst. Micah Frink.
You got it. There you go. We practiced.
I know. I have been, well, not notoriously, but I am terrible with names. I'm probably the only person who knows that I'm terrible with names, but I just am. So I still already forgot it. Micah Frink.
Oh, correct.
Okay, Micah Frink from Beware the Bay podcast. Micah, before we get started, and if you're new to this show, this is kind of what we do. We just go over the week that was. We talk about the injury report and then some things that happened around, Bucs world through the week. And then we finish off with things we want to see, which will be the Panthers game and some predictive MVPs. But, since Brent's out and here not to steer the show, and we always have a guest on, why don't you tell everybody, where you're from, how you got started, where they can find you, promote yourself in the show.
Oh gosh, twist my arm, why don't you? No, Ren, I'm originally from Tampa, so that's where I met my friend Brandon. Brandon and I started a podcast because we just like to talk Bucs, and we had been doing that off air for years, and it's both something we're passionate about. And so we said, well, listen, we're wasting a lot of time just talking between each other. Why don't we just record it and put it up? We've been inspired by so many great podcasts. Listen, the Bucs fan podcast market is saturated. We don't it's not like we're anything special, Ren, but we've been inspired by guys like you, guys like Brent, more Brent so than you, Ren.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Duh.
We just wanted to put it up, and so I actually then moved to New Orleans. So I'm here in New Orleans. I'm not local to Tampa anymore, here for school. And I finished up my undergrad and master's. My wife's finishing up her undergrad as we speak this semester. So it's been fun, man. We still do the podcast thing. I'm not local anymore, but I'm able to keep up with Brandon and the Bucs from afar. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's nice, growing up in this day and age and to be able to be a fan out of market. It is so much easier. Like, you can even listen to the local sports talk radio station, WDAE, if you want to, on your phone or on your laptop. Like, you're never disconnected as you once were just 10 years ago. So, my interest is piqued. Where do you go to school and what are you studying and what's your wife's? Look at you, like all grown up, like you guys are gonna go out there with tremendous debt but get really great paying jobs. You're not doing like women's studies or something, are you?
No, but it's pretty close, man. I'm actually in seminary, so I've obviously didn't go into this for the money. But
how much? Okay, does that
go ahead?
Okay, just because I'm Douglas O'Connor. Shocker, I'm Catholic, Irish Catholic. We had some priests in the family. Does the church pay for that? Like, pay your student loans when you're done, or like, really, how does that work?
I think it kind of depends on the denomination that you're in.
Okay.
So, and then like if you're already working at a church and it's got like more members, so more like, a bigger budget, they might be able to work out with you something in your contract to be able to pay for your school. I actually know some people on campus who kind of have that deal, like where they're working at a church and part of their salary, it goes towards, paying for their school. So I know a lot of places do it. And specifically a lot of people, in more, I don't want to say like high church, but like, Catholic or, maybe Anglican, they might pay a little bit more because some of those guys are placed in the positions that they're in. So it's more of it's more important to the denominations to be developing future priests or parishioners,
right?
So that they can place them. In my denomination, Baptist, we don't do that. So it's kind of hit or miss, and it's more autonomous. The churches are. So listen, I don't have debt though.
Okay.
So hey, I had to pay for it, but I don't have debt. So we made some sacrifices, but I'm excited to be done. I'm looking forward to the next season for sure.
Nice. Okay. And is your wife doing along the same lines?
Similar, yeah. She's in the music program here at the seminary, so she wants to teach elementary music, which she's a saint. Just way better than I am. I mean, that is
That's saying
an
a lot.
incredible calling for sure.
That's saying a lot. What do you do for like? I'm a priest, and my wife is way better than me.
Hey, but it's true though. It's true.
I'm not going to even attempt to argue that. All right. Okay. So let's get into the show. Our first topic, which is where's my book? See, this is the stuff that Brent usually takes care of. Our first topic is roster moves, and oddly enough, I think I've been doing this podcast for 5 years. This is the first time that nothing happened. No one got waived. No one got on the practice squad. They didn't even turn over anybody on the end at the bottom of the practice squad. So, there's a good segment for everybody. Nothing happened.
It's riveting.
Yes, very, very riveting. Thank God I'm here. So we'll just move on to the injury report. Do you want to start with Bucs or you want to start with Panthers?
Yeah, why don't we hit the Panthers, man? This is a big one for sure.
It is a big one. I am one who doesn't like to go over, the fine minutiae of the injury report. So what I would like to do is just go ahead and talk about the 4 people that are out. All the people that are questionable for the Panthers all had full participation on Friday, and that almost means 100% they're going to end up playing. But the people that have been ruled out is Reggie Bonifon, running back, Christian McCaffrey, running back, Russell Okung, tackle, and Stephen Weatherly, defensive end. And I can't even find Weatherly. If you think the Buccaneers don't update their depth chart or roster very quickly, Weatherly's not even on. I couldn't even find him on the Panthers depth chart at all. So
it's obviously a tactic, that's for sure.
So we'll start with Christian McCaffrey, obviously. Big break for the Bucs, but Stephen Davis has come in, and he's sort of their power back. And what we saw the past 2 weeks with the Giants running power against us and starting every drive 2nd and 5, or every drive 2nd and 5, always staying ahead of the sticks. And then what the Saints did to us, with putting in, what's his dumb face name?
Murray?
No, Taysom Hill, and running power, and had a lot of success with it. It's 2 weeks in a row running it in between the tackles, and the Buccaneers have kept teams ahead of the sticks. And with the Bucs' athleticism, defensively, be able to shut down people like Kamara, like they've done 4 times in a row now. They've shut down McCaffrey 3 times in a row. We can go on the list of all the running backs they faced last year. This isn't quite the coup Buck fans, might hope for, because you might be taking out someone as dangerous as McCaffrey, but then just inserting the guy that does the one thing well that the Bucs can't stop.
It's ironic, isn't it? I mean, and listen, it is big news that Kamara's or that CMC's out. He accounted for a massive part of their offense last week, especially against the Chiefs. He had 18 carries, 69 yards, 10 receptions for 82 yards. Well over 100 yards. But like you said, that might have been playing to the strengths of this Buck defense. You have Mike Davis, who's been really successful. If you look up his statistics there, it's high volume when he's been in, and he's been relatively efficient. I think his top total is like 16 carries for 89 yards, but it was a 5.6 clip per carry. Big guy, going to be doing power running. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll get to it and things to look for, but this is especially a game where, if there was ever a get right game for defense, like I said it against the Giants, and I was like, okay, it's time to get right. Then I said it against the Saints. I was like, it's time to get right. Like it's really time to get right. We've got to get right. So
if you just keep saying it, odds are it's going to happen sooner or later.
That's how it works.
And then after the game, you can be like, I told you so. So let's say if McCaffrey was in the game, and I don't know, we'll say that's an 80% danger meter for the Buccaneers defense. Where do you put Davis in, being now the guy who's going to touch the ball almost exclusively? Because the first guy I talked about is also their 3rd string running back. So anybody who Davis is going to get the ball all the time. All the people that are going to be active and running back for the Panthers this week are going to come from the practice squad. So if we'll just say, like I said, McCaffrey's 80% danger for the Bucs, where do you put Davis? Where's his danger meter at?
I mean, 60. I do think it's less. I mean, you have a guy
Right.
who, in Christian McCaffrey, who's perennially destroyed NFL defenses. He was on clip last year for historic numbers. I think he tapered off a little bit last year, but then you look at Mike Davis, who, I mean, he's been effective, and you can credit, in my opinion, that's more on the scheme that they've been able to draw up, and then the offensive line doing a really good job, because who knew Mike Davis's name before this all happened? Nobody did.
No.
So
no one drafted him.
I would say, I would say it's like 60%, because I am worried, specifically because of the leaky run defense up the middle of the last couple of games.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I would give it a little more because of what Gallman on the Giants did to us. It's going to be a lot closer ball game if the Panthers get to be like 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5. Like every time they get the ball, or every time they get a first down, if they can run Davis at the middle and get 4 to 5 to 6 yards, I'll be standing up in my house a lot, being worried instead of fully planking on the couch, just checking Twitter because the game's in hand by the second quarter. So, yeah. All right. So now let's stick with the Panthers and let's talk about Russell Okung, their starting tackle. The guy that's going to replace him is Greg Little, according to their depth chart. Little was a 2nd-round draft pick just last year, played like 4 games, put on injury reserve, and then didn't get his job back. Okung has been a 2-time Pro Bowl player, and what's impressive about that, the difference between his Pro Bowls is like 5 or 6 years. Wow. He made it early in his career, then he made it like in 2017. So this is a high-priced guy. He's probably their best offensive lineman. If you ask any Panthers fan, of course, every team complains about their offensive line. Period. End of story. Like no matter what team fan you are of, you're going to complain about the offensive line. But they've lost their best offensive lineman, so that would be go in the plus column for the Bucs. But we have seen last year and even this year games against the Bears and games against the Raiders and games against the Broncos where we were facing these beat up offensive lines that had 1 to 2 to 3 of their best guys out, not just guys, but their best guys out, and still no pressure from the front 4. So it's a plus, but are you looking for, this front 4? It's really front 5, but Bowles usually only sends 4. They're trying to get pressure with 4 nowadays. Are you expecting those 4 guys to get home or to at least harass or put up a game like we saw the Saints do against Tom Brady? You're expecting that? Or is it just another, it doesn't really matter who, other teams plug in, they're just going to stonewall those 4 guys and we're going to have to send blitzes?
Yeah, I'll probably cover a little bit more of this and what I'm looking for. But honestly, until I see it, I'm probably going to go with I'm going to expect the front 4 to struggle, and I think that then falls onto our coaches. If you see a trend like this, you have to coach around it. It is what it is. I mean, we wanted back in the day our corners, right? We wanted those corners to be shutdown corners, but they weren't. And so you either had to coach around it or find different guys. Well, we're too far in to find different guys, and I think the guys we got are great. Missing Vita Vea, I think, is the biggest part of this whole conversation.
Oh yeah.
So I'll get to that in a little bit more in a little bit. But as far as that question is concerned, yes, it's great that we have an advantage with their tackle being out. But Greg Little is not a slouch either. I mean, he did pretty good against Joey Bosa. So I don't expect this to be a game where our front 4 is constantly harassing, which means I think we'll have to scheme around that.
All right. And for the last one, before we move on to the Bucs, we have Stephen Weatherly. Don't know anything about him. Plays defensive end. No clue whatsoever. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a few times this pod. The front for the Panthers are averaging about the Panthers defense in total are averaging like just about 1 sack per game. Like this is game 9, they got 8 sacks, or this is game 9, they have 10 sacks or 9 sacks. So getting pressure on the quarterback hasn't been something that they've done. So it's almost to the point where it doesn't matter if anyone's out. The only guy that I'm even slightly worried about is Brian Burns. And, if you give up one sack to Brian Burns somewhere in a 4-quarter game, like that's not the reason you're going to lose this game. So Weatherly, no one cares. All right. Also, the Bucs had a very long list of players that were, limited and full and back and forth, and also a lot of veterans on there like Jason Pierre-Paul and Dominican Suited, and appeared on it all week until the end and did not participate. But those are all veteran days. But the Bucs are pretty healthy. They have 3 questionables going into it. We will go over only 2 of them. One's Carl Mickens. No one cares. Like, if he doesn't play, that's fine. I think Bucs fans are okay with that. There's enough people to throw the ball to. Then and if Brady starts throwing it to Jaden Mickens again, I think people are going to lose their goddamn minds. So
I know I will.
So we're going to talk about Carlton Davis and Ali Marpette. We'll save Ali Marpette for last. Carlton Davis was fine Wednesday, showed up Thursday. It was a soreness in his leg or his knee. Then was limited on Friday. Bruce Arians said he looked pretty good. Do you expect Carlton Davis to go? And if not, what's that spell for the Buccaneers defense? Like, how are they going to adapt, or how can that help the Panthers?
I mean, of the 2 guys, of course, I think it's more important that Ali Marpette go.
Right.
But this would be huge if Carlton Davis couldn't go. I do expect him to go. I'll be honest, and if he doesn't, I think that does spell some difficulty for our defensive game plan, because Carlton Davis has been a lockdown corner this year. And so much so that it's the past couple games he hasn't been targeted nearly at all.
Yeah.
And then you look at then the pressure it puts onto SMB, the pressure it puts onto Jamel Dean. They've had some carousel of who's starting and who's not, which I don't know about you, but to me that spells that they're still trying to figure out who's going to play well this season, and they just haven't figured it out. Jamel Dean has not looked good at times. SMB's look slow. You see Jamel Dean biting on the double moves. He was victimized the entire game against the Giants. So, dear God, I hope that Carlton Davis plays, because we need him desperately for sure.
Yeah, and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson both went over 100 yards when they played us, in week 2. So, we're not looking for a repeat of that, but it would make me feel better if Carlton was out there. And unless he got beat like one play over the top, I don't think, if they throw at the guy he's covering 7 times, and get like 120 yards, that's just not going to happen. Like, he may give up 3 catches for, 101, but one of them's like 85 yards, and it's going to stink, but yeah, much better like my chances with Carlton Davis out there. The guy who became MVP of the Buccaneers by not playing against the Saints, Ali Marpette. Joe Haig did an admirable job. He wasn't terrible. Bruce Arians talked about, because Donovan Smith was terrible, breaking news. And Bruce Arians talked about how it was because it was a new guy next to him. If Donovan Smith doesn't know how to pick up a twist or a stunt or a text move by year 6, and Joe Haig doesn't know how to do it by year 8 or 9 that he's playing, I guess Ali Marpette is the one who has to tell Donovan Smith what to do every single play. And without him out there, that left side of the line was porous. And, Brady wasn't running for his life, but he was seeing ghosts a little bit. He would go down sooner than I think any Bucs fan would appreciate. But some of these older, statuesque, more quarterbacks, that's just what they do, and you just have to accept it. So Ali Marpette's in concussion protocol. He has been practicing all week. He was still in it by Friday. They're going to check on him on Saturday. Now, this one's, not he was limited. He's going to go. Like, he has to pass certain tests. It doesn't matter how he feels. It doesn't matter. I can go. Like, that doesn't matter. There's certain standardized testing that he has to pass to be able to be cleared by the doctors to be able to clear to play. So, obviously, we're hoping that Ali Marpette plays. How big is his presence, going to be felt? Let me put it this way. what would happen to the Bucs offense, and what would they have to change schematically going up? Even though the Panthers don't have a great pass rush, last in the league in sacks, without Ali Marpette in there. Just kind of talk about how important we found out how important he is to this offense.
Maybe the most important. I mean, it was glaring.
More important than Brady?
No, that's not true. Yeah, but I mean, very important. Hey, listen, I'm going to get to it. Brady has not looked good in games where he's been sacked 3 times, and I don't want to talk about that. I think it's worth mentioning. But hey, listen, on the offensive line, yes, chemistry is a thing. It is. I mean, and the amount of communication that goes into it is far more than the average fan. I mean, I don't know what all goes into it, but picking up blitzes and the games that these defensive. I mean, it's big. To me, I'm a little lower on Joe Haig's performance. I did not like what I saw. And so, as far as changes go, it's so important. Ali Marpette, I think, he's rated extremely highly on PFF. And I think he's like number 2. He almost made the PFF mid-season all-pro team, quote unquote.
Right.
He's extremely good. And he's the best offensive lineman we have. So, what could we change? I think it's worth considering maybe the option of going Shipley at center and bouncing Jensen to guard based on what I saw. Now, if there's ever a game to gamble, this might be it with Joe Haig, at the guard, because like you said, this pass rush has not been good. So to me, it kind of goes to, do you value the center quarterback relationship exchange or do you believe in Joe Haig enough, or did you see what you saw and you're like, okay, it's time to go ahead and make that move? What do you think, Brandon, about that?
I'm with you on the second part about, if there's gonna be a game where it's gonna hurt the least, this is the one. I kind of think Ali's gonna go. Now again, like I said, like it's not up to him, but I think he's gonna go. If he doesn't, bouncing, Jensen over and AQ Shipley could be an option. I wouldn't be surprised if that was going to happen. Then that would free up Joe Haig to be able to come in and play the blocking tight end on short distance downs, which something we missed because we saw it when we got down on the 2-yard line and couldn't put it in against the Saints. So, I'm not. I joked about talking about how Ali Marpette was MVP because we saw it because he didn't show up. I mean, I think that's an exaggeration on that part. I think Ali Marpette's a very good player. I still think this team can win ball games, especially against lesser opponents, without him in there. But it puts my mind more at ease. Like when he's in there, I'm not looking at right guard or left guard, excuse me. But totally. The Saints game, where was I looking? Left side of the line. Where I'll be looking early. First time the ball's hiked on offense. Where am I looking? I'm not looking at the drop back. I'm not looking at the handoff. I'm not looking at what receivers are in the game. I'm not seeing if Antonio Brown's on the field. I'm going to see if Joe Haig gets beat or not. So if Ali was there, I wouldn't even have to worry about it at all. But you brought up PFF. How do you and Brandon, you guys at Beware the Bay podcast, what's your take on the old PFF Pro Football Focus grading system? I
got a love-hate relationship with it.
Doesn't everybody?
I wrote it down in my notes here. Let me see if I can find it here. I mean, this is it. I think it's frustrating, from a standpoint of, you like some of the grades, and when it's good for your team, you're like, heck yeah, we're ranked high on PFF. This is great. Oh, Jamel Dean must be a lockdown corner too. He's ranked super. I mean, come on, we've watched his performances the last couple of weeks. Some of that smoke and mirrors, and in my opinion, I don't know what goes into their grading, right. But I definitely think it paints a contextual picture that looking at bare statistics might not. But at the same time, you have situations where you have like Wagner over Levante. And I just don't think that's fair. Levante is criminally underrated with PFF, and I don't know why. I'd love to ask somebody about that. So I got a love-hate relationship with it, and I think advanced statistics are great. I cite them all the time. I cite DVOA from Football Outsiders all the time because I think that paints a very good contextual picture. But it seems to me that the contextual picture that PFF paints is not always on point, and sometimes even the eye test can tell you that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of everyone's take. The basic take is that when they rank your players or your team or your defense or your offense or your receivers high, you're like, yeah, look at everybody, and you retweet it, and and you point, like you got your Saints fan in the office or your Rams fan, like, look at this dude, and like, shut your face. And then when, there's a player that you really like and they have them ranked low, you're like, who's grading this? Like, what's going on? Like, you don't know anything. And yeah, you can say it's the eye test, but also, like, I don't watch all the Seahawks games. Like, I think Bobby Wagner's having a down year, but that's because what the announcer told me the one time I watched the Seahawks game. So I get that. What I like about PFF is it's the same grading scale across the board. Okay, so every player's look through the same filter. What I don't like PFF is that the same person doesn't grade every player, or the same person doesn't grade all the cornerbacks. The same person doesn't grade all the safeties. So it's an objective grading system done by many people, which introduces a lot of variables, which gets this fluctuation of, yeah, you guys are right, or, oh, really, Jamal Dean, he's what in zone defense? Oh, I had no idea. Or, the Levante Daves and the Devin White's not being as high as we want them to be.
Yeah, and I think it kind of comes down to, in business, it's almost an unscalable idea. It's great in theory, but it's kind of runs into the issue of scale with the amount of players and the amount of snaps. I mean, it's every single snap that goes into some of these grades, and at some point, it gets out of the realm of things you can control, and that's where computers can be helpful. But like you said, I mean, it is a grading scale. You need someone to be the grader. And if you can't have the same person grading every player, which again could also introduce some subjectivity with there. I mean, maybe he's from New England, or maybe he's a West Coast guy. Who knows? But yeah, it's tough to figure that out. I like him generally, but I think that there are some times where it sticks out.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. Well, that puts to bed the injury report. Let's move on to some weekly. We always do this on this show. Any sort of like weekly accolades that was given out by the NFL or different organizations or things like that. This just came out right for the pod hit. Antoine Winfield Jr. Was voted Rookie Defensive of the Year by a poll from Fox Sports on Twitter. So it was a national poll, and he won. I never saw it. So a lot of those times when I see these polls, I'll stump for it. I'll be like, stuff the ballot boxes, Bucs fans. Let's just, because it doesn't mean anything, but I just feel better when, our guy wins. So Anton Winfield started off extremely hot, like I said something jokingly, like, if he continues on this arc, he's going to be a Ring of Honor player. And now every time I say his name, Brent's like, yeah, like a Ring of Honor player, like you said. So now I have to say that, future Ring of Honor member, Antoine Winfield Jr. But he has, I don't want to say he's cooled off, but his splash plays have diminished that they were in week 1, week 2, week 3. Mm-hmm. We all like him. We all know what he can do. He all play multiple positions. But are you surprised by the national fans winning this vote, especially because when national fans get to watch the Bucs, we've laid an egg 3 times in a row on national TV, and he hasn't. There were no splash plays from him in the Chicago game that I can remember, or the Giants game, or the Saints game.
Yeah, it was surprising to me, and when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, it must have been an analyst that just picked it. But then it was a national poll. I was like, okay, Twitter, okay, I'm very surprised in you right now. But hey, I think it's worthwhile to hit your question. Firstly, I mean, if you look at just the season that he's put together, 51 total tackles, 34 solo, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and an interception. Those are the splash plays you're talking about. And a lot of people know other rookies like a Chase Young, but he hasn't been able to stack those splash plays up nearly as much as Antoine Winfield Jr. And I think it helps that you get kind of, even if it's only 1 interception, he also has a forced fumble. He also has 2 sacks. You got kind of different kinds of splash plays.
He also plays for a winning team.
No kidding. And it is ironic too that every time the national TV is on it, the defense is nowhere to be seen. The offense is nowhere to be seen. So I was surprised by that. But I think the only thing I'll say is, the whole defense has been trending down the last 3 weeks. And, without Vita Vea, I think that's a benchmark. The Packers game was great, but since then it's not been good. It's not been very good. So I think everybody's cooled off. Not just Antoine Winfield Jr.
Do you think, we'll talk about this now. Do you think it's the scheme? I agree with you that the defense, I don't want to be as harsh to say it's trending down. But the way the defense looked in the first half, we'll say the first quarter of the season and the second quarter of the season has been vastly different. Is it opponents? Is it scheme? It can't just be the loss of Vita Vea because, this is a passing league.
That's true.
Like the linebackers still got to make the plays and the safeties and the corners. Those are the guys that sort of make the plays that stop drives. Even if you stuff, the run on first and second down, it's 3rd and 8. Like you need those, you need everyone else besides the nose guard to come up and get that other, get the team off the field, the other team's offense off the field. So when you look at the defensive performance of late, which has not, we'll just throw the Saints game out. It's such an outlier. Like it hasn't been terrible, but watching how dominant they were sort of in the first quarter of the season and now the second quarter where the holes, they seem to be being out schemed, maybe even out coached. Am I wrong on that? Or what do you think is the reason why, the needle's sort of pointing down for the defense?
Yeah, you're barking up the right tree. If you do look in the vocabulary I've used is they're not living up to the standard that they set for themselves. You can look at there's not very many good defenses in the NFL. Let's be real. You have in the NFC. Can you name another good defense? Maybe you could say the Saints on any given night, but there's not many other good defenses in the NFC right now. AFC, Pittsburgh's looked a little bit leaky. Different days they've struggled with injuries. Again, there's just not very many good defenses in the NFL. It's a passing league. The offensive players tend to have more of an advantage as far as the referees are concerned. Quarterbacks are very protected. They'll call DPIs more than OPIs. And again, I'm not blaming the era that we live in, but you don't see as many dominant defenses. But even so, the Bucs had been dominant at the beginning of the season, and it's almost inexplicable to have seen that. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We're going to be Tom Brady's just the cherry on top. This is going to be a defensive team. And then what we saw these last couple of weeks where the defense was struggling with stopping people, struggling to get home. Pass rush was not there. We're getting burned on routes. Linebackers are stinking in coverage. There's just a lot of different things where you're going like, man, it has the confidence. Have we lost our confidence? And again, I go back to coaching. If you look at the Packers game, which I think was our best defensive performance, the scheme was fantastic. It was the best game I've ever seen from a defensive coordinator in Tampa. And again, I'm younger than most, so I didn't get to see the late '90s teams. But in my adult fandom, it was such a great game called. But it was aggressive. It was sending 5 and 6 a lot. Every splash play came from rushing 5 and 6. And I know you can't do that the whole game, but rushing 4 and dropping into soft zone coverage has been a recipe for disaster, and we've seen it way too many times this year.
Yeah, when Daniel Jones can keep the ball moving on your defense, then that's a problem because Drew Brees is going to be able to do that, and Teddy Bridgewater is going to be able to do that, and everyone else is going to be able to do that. Despite popular belief, every quarterback in the NFL is really good at football. They can all throw the football. They just don't know what they're looking at a lot of times. And by the time they figure it out, they're out of the league because no one trusts them anymore.
I heard sorry to interrupt. I heard a quote this week from Tom Brady that was interesting. One of the things he said, somebody asked him what the offensive identity, and I'll get back to the defense in just a second. This is kind of parlaying into that, what the offensive identity was. And he said, well, we're trying to figure that out, and it can kind of change from week to week. And that was a little bit of a red flag for me because it's like you're halfway through the season and you're still trying to figure out your offensive identity. And it's almost like, you've seen the defense. It had an identity. It was aggressive blitzing scheme. The upside is the Packers game. The downside is the Chargers game. If you can get a quarterback who'll just chuck it, stand in the pocket, you may get burnt deep. but that was working, and it gave us a great opportunity to win football games, takeaways, putting teams behind the sticks, and then to inexplicably a couple games, just rush for zone coverage. I don't know. Do you think that our coaches are maybe outthinking themselves in some ways?
I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know what to think right now. It's real easy to go, oh, they're just being too cute, or they're just being too fancy. It's like, well, this is what we're gonna do against Drew. We're gonna get the front four home. Well, they're having problems getting home. Okay, well, we'll just drop back in zone, and that will make Drew hold the ball more, come off his first read, maybe go to his second read, and that time we'll be able to get the four home. Well, I guess that's the way to do it. If that's one way to do it, but I can't sit here and watch a football game and see the same things. I know when I'm seeing Todd Bowles he's seeing it too. And I can't believe that Todd Bowles isn't seeing what I'm seeing. Like if he sees what I see, he should understand what's happening because I understand what's happening. So there's something more, there's something deeper that they're doing. But I don't subscribe to these theories. Well, oh, they were just playing that, and they hoped they won the game and kept it close because when they see him in the playoffs, they're really going to unpack. It's like if you don't win the game, you're not going to make the playoffs. Exactly. That type of stuff. So, yeah, and some of the things with the offense where they're where they go into. God, was that the Raiders? No, what was the game? Was it the Giants game? What game were they throwing to Mickens like 9 times in a row?
I think it was Giants.
Yeah, and they're like, well, the plan was we put Mickens in as Chris Godwin, and against what they saw, that was the guy who was going to get the ball. Now, he was open. Don't get me wrong. He stopped on a route one time. He dropped one time. Brady overthrew him one time. Well, he's only like 5'2", but you can put somebody else there. Like Mike knows the routes. There was 22 more different people on that roster that was a better choice than Jaden. Okay, I'm exaggerating, of course. Better choice than Jaden Mickens.
Yeah, just throw Byron out there.
yeah, like anybody. So you look at that and you're like, okay, it worked, but it didn't work. It worked schematically, but the execution wasn't there. Why was the execution there? Because you're throwing to the guy that, like, Brady hasn't thrown 100 balls to Jaden Mickens all year. Like in training camp, I didn't go this year, didn't even try. In training camp, they line up like every time Brady's turn to throw, Mike Evans is running the route. Next time it's Brady's turn to throw, Chris Godwin is running the route. Next time it's like that's who he throws to. You know who throws to Mickens? Griffin and the guy that the camp arm. Like that's who throws. Like Blaine Gabbert doesn't even throw to Mickens. Like. So when you think about it that way, it kind of gets you into the thought of the Dirk Cutter type of thinking where these guys are professionals. This is, is what they're paid to do. Right. And they just have to execute it. Well, okay, fine, but they can't. And you're seeing they can't, and you're refusing to change it. And by the way, it was kind of stupid to do it in the first place. You have so many other avenues, ways to go to be able to beat teams, or at least even just move the ball. Right. And it's like that. You ever seen the movie Tin Cup? Mm-mm. Okay. It's a golf movie with Don Johnson, Kevin Costner, and Rene Russo. And Kevin Costner plays this great golfer who just can't stay out of his own way. He's just that guy, And at one point, he's trying to get Rene Russo to date him, who's actually dating Don Johnson. Don Johnson hates dogs, old people, and something else. It's a pretty funny movie. And Don Johnson's talking to Rene Russo, and he goes, say you're at a party, and it's like, the wealthiest guy in the world, and there's a moat filled with sharks and a rowboat, and the richest guy in the world goes, whoever can get to the other side of the moat first can marry my daughter. And Kevin Costner looks at her and goes, what would make a guy swim for it? And she goes, he's stupid. And that's what comes into my head when I see the plan that they did defensively against Saints and offensively against the Giants. It's just like, you're just being stupid. Like you're just trying to show off. Like there's your ego's in the way. There's something there, but I don't want to believe that because these guys have been coaching so long. Like they cannot be that stupid. Your ego cannot be that big where it costs the team that badly.
I know, and it does really come down to, so much of it comes down to coaching. And I know, like coaching is a lot more important in college football than it is in the NFL, and even still, I mean, the game plans that they draw up, the decisions made in games, the adjustments, you cannot put a value on that. It's so valuable. Yes, you have the greatest of all time out there, but what did he do? What did this offense do against the Saints? What did this defense do? Something's not right. You could call it a fluke game, and I'm choosing to do that so I can sleep at night. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be honest.
I'm just protecting myself emotionally.
Yeah, it didn't happen, right? I didn't sit on the couch with this hoodie, over my head in pain. But we gotta do something better because, I've been saying this a lot. You had a lot of people in the fan community who were calling out Bucs fans who were a little bit concerned in some of the games, even that we won, with some of the trends that we were noticing. And they were saying, well, you should just enjoy winning. And I said, guys, we will face far better opponents, and this isn't going to fly against far better opponents. And I think that's
Jake Arians.
I didn't say that. He didn't know who I am.
I did. I don't know if that's who you're talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Every
time you say something negative about the team, like, oh, Buck fans are the worst. Like, look, bro, you've been a fan of this team for about 22 games. Like, you don't get to tell me how I get to feel. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, I'm with you. And I think I use the word failure of coaching on our podcast this week, and I'm not going to step off that, because if you have this much talent, you got to be able to figure out a way to do something, to do anything on the field. And that's for the defense and the offense. I was very disappointed in the lack of adjustments. And, I'm just hoping, I don't even know how we got down this rabbit hole, but I'm just hoping that
right. We did rabbit hole this pretty bad. We started with Antoine Winfield, Defensive Player of the Year. We rabbit holed it
on the podcast.
No, this is how it goes. I mean, seriously, I love the organic conversation. But we do have one more award to give out. We won't talk about it long. Ryan Jensen, the Salute to Service representative from the team. I used to know a lot more about this award because Vincent Jackson won it. He would not only be nominated, he'd win it every year. For the NFL, and it's a player who does things for military families, and that's pretty much all I know. And now Brian Jensen is our representative from our team up for the award, and it could have been anybody else. Like, who else's personality fits this award more than Ryan Jensen?
Yeah, I'm glad he won it or was nominated for it, because I can't think of anybody else. And Brandon talked a little bit about this on the podcast, which, by the way, I'm only half of our podcast. Brandon had to close, bless his heart. So I'm sure we'll listen to it, and I'm just trying to plug him a little bit. But he talked about his grandfather and how much this award always means to him, that they give it out. His favorite gear is the military recognition jerseys and hats, like that. So yeah, I mean, it's a really cool award, especially because it means a lot to a lot of the families who have families, not just families, but also the people in the military, but families together who have made sacrifices. So I'm really glad that the NFL has found a way to do that, found a way to, the cancer month, and then social justice as well. All of those things are worthwhile and things that a big corporation like the NFL should stand up for. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm so glad that they went away with the pink cleats and towels and headbands and wristbands. It was really cool the first year. The second year was still fun. The third year, I was like, and every year after that, I was like, oh my God, like a month of this? I got to watch a month of this? And sort of like that tie-dye-esque, knockout cancer thing they did for October. I like it a lot better. So
me too.
Yeah. All right, now let's get into some fun stuff. I'm going to change the banner here, if I can remember how. Let's see, where should we start? Well, we've been a little negative, so let's start with this. We have played 2 games. Like, everyone loves these red jerseys. They're not my favorite. I like the pewter, but everyone loves these red jerseys. We've played 2 games in them, the Giants game and the offense. I guess I should have put in there are the red jerseys cursed for the defense? Or maybe just the whole team. So why, you might be too young to know this, but or hang on. Obviously, as everyone can see on the video cast, my light went down. I'll keep talking though. There was this huge stigma back in the day, like when Danny White was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And if you'll notice that Dallas only wears just about exclusively their white jerseys. Other teams used to wear their white jerseys when Dallas came to town to make them wear their blue because they didn't play as well in it. So are our red jerseys cursed? And could we be seeing teams in the future making the Bucs wear their home red on the road because they're so god awful when they wear them?
I hope so, because then it would force the Bucs to wear their red jerseys in the beginning of the year. I have no clue why we continue to do this, because there's no way it makes this much of a difference. Of course, I'm referring to the fact that we wear white jerseys or something like that for literally the first 9 games, but
it's too hot. It's too hot.
Oh, it's of course right. Of course, it's
as the Ravens come into town, black on black on black on black on black, head to toe, yeah, and then beat us like 42-10.
It was way too hot. We didn't want to lose when it was hot. I think that's what it was. No, the only uniform combo, in my opinion, that's cursed is the white on white. I hate the white on white.
Why did everybody hate the white on white?
I think it's nice, but it gets so dirty. I like the white with the pewter. It reminds me. And I have a question for you too. I thought about this. I have a question for you. It reminds me of my first memories of being a Bucs fan. Sure. I was just old enough to remember our Super Bowl. I remember our Super Bowl party, and it kind of all went downhill from there.
Yes.
But it really reminds me of that. And I don't like that they kind of, if you're going to go back to those, just go back to them, right? I mean, I don't know. That's my opinion. Okay, here's my question for you. What was your least favorite combo of the Bucs uniforms in the 90s era? I've got mine. What was your least favorite combo?
Oh, I didn't care. Like, this is before social media started, really. Like Twitter, Twitter didn't exist, obviously. I don't think Facebook exists. So that wasn't anything. First of all, let me say, where I grew up working in the restaurant business, and it was shockingly to me about how many people didn't care about the Bucs or sports in general in the restaurant business. I never really had anybody to talk to these things about. And when I would talk to people, they were kind of dumb about it. It was something that they heard, like maybe their dad said, or maybe their friend who's into the Bucs, they heard this or they heard that, or walking by the TV in the living room and ESPN said something about the Buccaneers. So there was never this discussion about the uniforms. Now, I remember the discussion of getting away from Bucko Bruce, the winking stiletto, gnarling pirate. I remember that. And, going over to the pewter helmet with the red flag and, the original incarnation of these present day uniforms. But as far as caring about or even noticing that, are they going to wear white jerseys with pewter pants, or are they going to wear red jerseys with white pants, or are they going to wear, red jerseys with pewter pants? I would have to say probably my least favorite combo, but again, I don't care, is red jersey, white pants.
Yes, I was hoping you would say that. I hate that combo. It makes no sense whatsoever.
No,
if you're already going to be red and pewter, you might as well just go for it. What is the draw? And listen, I'll bring all the care for both of us here.
Okay.
It matters. It really doesn't matter. But it's just aesthetically, the Bucs are so much more fun to watch this year. Aesthetically, the uniforms that we went away from, I have one because I love Mike Evans.
Right.
But golly, they were terrible. I mean, it's just so bad. So I'm glad we're in New Jerseys.
I didn't mind anything about that. And if you've listened to this pod, I'm talking to the listeners and watchers. You've heard my rant on this. The numbers were unreadable on TV. There was a point where all the cornerbacks and safeties for the Buccaneers were between 5'10" and 6 foot. And you'd see the two, And you're like, but is that a 5 or is that a 6? Is that a 3? Is that an 8? Like, I didn't know unless they turned their back and totally showed it to the camera. I couldn't tell you who it was. Was that Ryan Smith? Was that Vernon Hargreaves? Was that Brent Grimes? Like, who made that? I can't tell, because look, like, go ahead and move your head again. Because see if you see the 3 there, but you can't see the other end of the 3, okay, you move back. Like, is that an 8? Is that a 6? Like what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't. If you only see half the number, and it used to drive me crazy. So yeah, I'm not a huge uniform guy. But I'm glad these are back, because those numbers were like, it was. To me, it was so dumb. Like, I don't know how it ever got out of the think tank. Like, how did this get greenlit? Like, they're digital numbers. No, they're not. They're cut by a sword. No, they're digital clock numbers. So
Nike. That's the only thing. That's my only reasoning. I mean, it was the whole there was a whole thing that the college uniforms were all being done by Nike, and there was like a trend of that. And I just think they got caught up in a little bit of the hype. But moving on, do you want to talk about Brady and Evans for our next topic?
I do. Hence the little banner there at the bottom. You could have finished your thought. I was just, giving a little preview.
Okay, I thought that was like my, playing me off.
There you go. And I gotta go. Yeah. The play, like, this has been going on since pretty much week 1. Mike Evans has only really been targeted one time. And that was the Panthers game, pretty much. Where he had over 100 yards. BA kept saying, well, he's going to throw to the guy that's open. Brady, of course, I'm talking about Brady. Brady says, I'm going to throw to the guy who's open. Every week now it seems like, well, we got to figure out a better way to scheme the ball to Mike. We got to try moving around in the slot. Every team's double covering him. All those things are true and not true. Yeah. And then that play in the Saints game where, we were thoroughly embarrassed, and Brady misses Evans wide open, running right up the numbers. The cornerback, I don't know what the cornerback was doing at all. But the safety was on the opposite side of the field, and Brady determined pre-snap he was going, to Scotty Miller. It was a good pass, good completion, but Scotty Miller, being Scotty Miller, he had to jump for it, and the Panthers player just pushed him out of bounds. Meanwhile, Mike Evans is 30 yards downfield, and there is no one near him. And that just put all the people that, thought that, you got to be kidding me. Like this isn't really flying the stories we're getting from the coaching staff and Brady and Evans and the wide receivers coach. Mike Evans isn't being targeted, period. End of story. I watched 5 years of Jameis Winston targeting Mike Evans. One time he led the league in it. I know what it looks like when you're trying to get the guy the ball. They're not trying to get Mike the ball. We talked about it earlier. They threw the ball 47 times to Jaden Mickens in a row. And, so why? Why does Tom Brady hate Mike Evans?
Oh man, the age-old question.
He
doesn't hate him, but hey, I'm with you. I mean,
you can't prove that.
That's true. You never know. Man. Maybe it's because Mike Evans doesn't eat avocado ice cream. You never know.
Maybe Tom Brady hates Harry Potter.
Oh my gosh, that would be unthinkable. Maybe then Mike Evans wouldn't like Tom Brady. Is there a feud going on in the Bay? No. Okay, stop that.
Here we are. Yes. This is getting to the point.
Yeah.
Getting to the point where these conversations are beginning to be had. What the hell's going on?
Maybe exacerbates the problem. I think, and again, it's not a problem, but from a national media perspective, I've just turned it all off because I was
when you lose 31-3, it's a problem, and you don't get targeted till the second half. It's a problem.
It is. And I mean, even 2 weeks ago on our podcast, I talked about this, and this was, it's kind of when it was a few rumblings, but you still had a lot of the media members and a lot of the Bucs kind of, trying to dispel some of these rumors. And then Trevor Sikkema put his article out, which is about Evans being open. I think it was in the Raiders game. It was like 5 different times. And I think you have a bevy of reasons for why maybe you could look at Evans isn't getting the targets. Defenses are taking him away on some plays. There is double coverage. There is bracketing. But again, you can combat that by coaching. You can combat that by moving him around. They did that. They did both of those things. Then you have Brady, who won't make the ultra risky throws unless he absolutely has to. And this year, he hasn't necessarily had to do some of those things. He's reading things out ahead of time and predetermining where he's want to go with the ball. So that's a reason. You could look at injuries. I'm not going to talk about that with you, Ren, because I know you don't want to talk about Mike Evans and his injury. But I think the last thing is really, truly, is Brady's just not looking his way. It is what it is. Yeah. I don't know that you can – all those other reasons don't combat the ultimate thing. Brady's got the ball in his hands, and Mike Evans getting open enough, maybe just not maybe what Tom would be most comfortable with. But, with a guy like that, Evans is more open when he's plastered than the average receiver is. So I would love to see Tom throw to Mike Evans, not just because I'm a big Mike Evans fan. He doesn't care about the streak. I don't care about it either. But to win football games, you got to get this guy involved.
Yeah, I'm with you. Everything you said, I don't really have anything to add about that. But all these theories are going to come out very quickly. Especially if the Bucs lose to the Panthers and Mike only gets 5 or less targets. But apparently Antonio Brown has Mike's back because oh, wait. Sorry.
The tension before the joke.
All right. Yeah, I know I'm ruining it, right? Oh, it's on the ticker. Okay. Sorry. Brent, like I said, Brent always does this. There we go. It's at the bottom there. Why did AB untie Brady's jet skis and let him float out into the bay? Is it because he's not targeting Mike Evans?
Obviously. Obviously AB was sent over by Mike Tomlin, undercover to infiltrate this solid Bucs locker room that's above reproach, by the way. There's no way ever with this locker room. That's just disrespectful to those guys in the locker room. Obviously, this was all part of the master plan, and AB's a Steeler through and through, right? So makes sense.
Yeah, this is obviously sort of like a play on what happened with the hurricane. Tom Brady went through his first hurricane, which, by the way, Tom, that's not a hurricane. That was a rainstorm. And he didn't secure his jet skis. I guess they're on their own sort of floating dock, floating, slips. And those slips, which were tied to the dock, obviously not securely, floated out into the bay and then, floated down the canal or wherever I'm sure he lives right on the bay. So it floated and ended up going into one of his neighbor's docks and getting wedged under there. I think AB snuck out there and untied him because I think that's just his style. I think he's a funny dude. And now that we've talked about this, I don't like this joke, so I'm taking it away. So this is something that's been frustrating me. Fournette or Rojo, choose. I understand the Saints game, we're going to run 2-minute offense or 4-minute offense, and Fournette's our third down back. And, if he's in there, he can play all 3 downs. But here's the thing. He can't. He's turned into Charles Sims all of a sudden when you give him the ball in the backfield, where he gets patty cake feet at the line of scrimmage, and then then there's no hold there, and he just kind of falls forward. And then when they throw him the ball, he has more drops than Rojo, and he can't make anybody miss. And he catches the ball, turns, looks at the defender, does his patty cake feet, and then, just falls forward for 2 yards. Or you got Rojo, who can't play third down because he can't pick up the blitz, and he does drop some balls. But I think that he's a much better runner. And here's sort of my argument here for Rojo. There's only been one time in his career as a Buccaneer that there hasn't been someone who was substituted for him on purpose, on a regular basis. We're going to give Rojo 2 series, and then we're going to give Barber 2 series. Or we're going to give Barber the first 2, then Rojo. Or we're going to give Rojo series and put Fournette in. There was only 3 games in his entire career where he had to be the guy, and he ran for 100 yards every single time. Like, I don't think Fournette's and what's funny is when we say this, in our bigger live chat rooms, there's always someone in there that's like, you're crazy. Fournette is way better, but they're never Bucs fans. They're fans of other teams that are in the chat room that laugh at me and Brent and whoever's on that even suggest that Rojo's a better runner than Fournette. Like, so I put the question to you. Who's better? Who do you got? If you're starting a football team and these are the 2 guys you got to pick from, which one are you picking?
A lot of it comes down to the doggedness of the coaches and the plan that they're trying to put forth and the lack of creativity. I had a lot to say about Byron this week. The first down runs, they've been bad. So, scheme plays a big part of it. But good backs usually find a way to get some yards regardless of the scheme. I loved when Rojo was the guy. I loved it. I mean, he looked confident. He was running with confidence. And I know that's not, you can't really quantify that, but he was. I mean, you could see it. And to me, I think Rojo's always been a little bit of a head case in some ways. And I don't say that in the sense that he's, like an Antonio Brown head case. I mean more that, when there's been like all the expectations his rookie year, he wilted. Then when he had to share snaps with Peyton Barber, similar kind of situation in some ways last year. So he was great when Fournette was out. And then when he came back, it was like, he'd get his opportunities, couldn't get hot. Maybe he'd drop a ball and he'd get taken out of a ball game and he wouldn't run very well the last, part of the game. So I don't know, Ren, I don't know what the solution is. And I don't think the coaches know either. That's the problem. You want to put Rojo in there first 2 downs and then have Fournette on 3rd down. But Fournette's not very good out of the backfield either. Like you said, nobody in this backfield can catch a ball and make a guy miss in space. Not Shady, not Fournette, not Rojo.
Then quit running screens. Like, that's the answer. We saw the answer. 300-yard games in a row. There's enough weapons that if you have to run a screen, you can run it to Scotty Miller. You can run it to Chris Godwin. He runs the best tunnel screens I've seen almost anybody in the NFL. He catches the ball and he gets upfield, period, end of story. And he's going to make people tackle him. Like, you run a tunnel screen to Chris Godwin, it's 7 yards minimum. And there's a big enough sample size to prove that. Run it to Mike. Run it to Antonio Brown. Run it to Gronk. There's all kinds of people that you can throw the ball to in the screen game or on 3rd down. You don't need Rojo. You don't need it. Like, block from the inside out, man. Like, just make Rojo chip whatever guy that Donovan Smith is blocking. Like there are many ways to keep Rojo on the field all 3 downs, but they seem to be stuck in this thought that if you're playing on 3rd down, you have to be able to catch the ball.
Right.
And he can catch the ball. He's dropped less than Fournette has. So, I mean, it's just frustrating because I'm no Rojo fan. Like, I thought after the first year, I'm like, oh my God, like this guy, he probably had the worst statistical year of any rookie running back in the history of the NFL with the many touches he got. Yeah, he had less yards than touches. I mean, and he had like 44 yards. That means he had over 44 touches.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So in the second year, like like I talked about, and everyone knows that he didn't really get his chance against Barber, and I was never super impressed with Ronald Jones, but he's a Buck, and I want to see him do well. So I'm like, well, like you can't, cut bait yet with him. Let's see. And then when he finally gets his chance due to injuries, because the coaches have to lean on him, he comes up aces. And then Fournette comes back and he just cut his legs off from under him again. And those games were not, and the Bucs have not played good offensively in those games.
Right.
When Rojo was rolling, so were the Buccaneers.
Totally. And I think it's a larger discussion, again, back to play calling and scheme and game plan. I would have been totally fine with saying, hey, Rojo's the guy until he's not when Fournette's back. I don't care if Fournette's, a little frustrated on social media or those kind of things. Rojo's been playing good. You have the excuse that you need. He's playing good. We're not going to take him out. And then I think the other thing's true is that, I I want this team to be good with 4 wide, and I hope that they can, but some of those things can impact the running game as well. So why did you have to bring Antonio Brown in and then create a bunch of packages for this guy? He's brand new. He didn't know the whole playbook. It was obvious they did a lot less of what they're good at, which is 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets. Obviously, injuries hurt those things, and they were hurting on the offensive line, but that can help, at least with our offensive scheme. You said it. Why run screens when you can just run up the middle? That will, they've been doing a certain style of that with a lot of extra blockers, in the middle. So there's a lot of factors. I think that's the reason why I think that a lot of this is aberration. And I do hope that they're able to coalesce and to come together with some sort of identity, because they're going to need an identity quick, especially going up against the Chiefs and the Rams in just a few weeks.
Yeah, I think that they were a little too eager to show off their shiny new toy in Antonio Brown. And I think Antonio Brown played well, to be honest. That catch he had for a first down, even though we were down 31-0, like that was, by the time he saw it, it was already over his head. And he got his hands up and caught it behind his helmet. And for a first down, it was like you saw that catch. I think Chris Collinsworth went, whoa. Like that was, and granted, like there was nothing to see offensively from the Buccaneers at all. So you saw anybody catch the ball, was like, ooh, something's going to happen here. But then when Brady targeted him deep, not the one where he broke off the route and was interception, but he targeted him deep and it ended up being short, Antonio Brown started to box the defender out. Like he squatted down and he put his arms out and he tried to box the guy out. The guy went over the top of him. And it ended up, no one caught the pass, but I thought that those were really 2 very good effort plays that I had, that honestly I haven't seen from not many offensive Buccaneers. Like with his, you see those 2 things and you're like, okay, I can see why he's competitive, and okay, I can see why this guy, why people think he can catch the ball better than most.
Absolutely.
But trying to, unpack the shiny new toy before, you really understand what you got, and he understands, the scheme and what's been trying to do. It was kind of a perfect storm where, you get down so much so early, but still, like if I was a coach, I just would have, if you want to go 4 wide, like use Tyler Johnson, like go Miller, Godwin, Evans, Johnson, and just save your toy for another day. But yeah, I'm with you. I just wish they did just give Rojo a shot. So we'll finish up with that. Now, our last one before we move on to the Panthers game and talk about what we want to see, and then finally predictive MVPs is, damn it.
Hey, I'm enjoying this, man.
I wonder if I can edit that. Some of these I put on the ticker. I didn't realize the ticker and the banner were 2 different things. So when you type these in pre-hand, you can do you want it to tick like a ticker, or do you want it to be a banner? And I put the longer ones as a ticker, but I didn't know it would be so small and all this kind of stuff. Anyway.
Well, the only thing I'm offended about is my name's not on the screen now. So, I'm a little offended about that, but otherwise it's all good.
Oh, where it was like we're on with Micah Frink.
Oh, yeah, you nailed it.
I'm the worst. Anyway, if you're not watching this on YouTube, it says at the bottom of the screen, scrolling in very tiny letters, is it time to sit Devin White in Bucs nickel defense? Now, hear me out. Let me set this up before everyone freaks out. When the Bucs go nickel, they take one of their 3 defensive linemen out so they can keep Lavonte David and Devin White both on the field. So when the extra DB comes on the field, they're taking the place of a defensive lineman. So they only really have 4 guys up front, 2 guys standing up, and 2 guys with their hand in the dirt. Again, that's to keep White and David on the field. Now, teams have started to figure out that Lavonte David, if you make him turn and run, he's really not that great in coverage. Awesome in zone. People have seemed to figure out that Devin White can't cover anybody at all in coverage, zone or man-to-man. I think when, they were talking about on the football game, like Drew Brees has completed 8 passes to 8 different receivers. I think 7 of them were against White, like those different receivers. Like they ran their tight end at him, completion. They ran their second string tight end, touchdown. They ran their slot. They ran their running. They ran everybody against him, and everyone caught it. And this isn't something that this was not a bad game. Like, Devin White can't cover. So we've talked about how the defense is trending down a little bit. We've talked about how they need a spark. Do we go to a traditional nickel, pulling Devin White off the field? Do we pull Levante David off the field because of Devin White's speed? Do we rotate him, or do we just keep it where it is because both those guys are such playmakers?
Yeah, this is a tough question. I think it's a question that, Todd Bowles is looking in the mirror going, what do I do? Because you even saw in the beginning of the year, there were guys open. These are not new trends of the things you're talking about. It's just been exacerbated by the fact that teams have tape on them and they're going right at our trouble spots. In my opinion, I think you take your lumps. You take this guy, that high in the draft. He's got to be an every down guy. And Devin White, and listen, he's been targeted a bunch. I think he's like one of the most targeted on our defense. That's not a cornerback or something. And I think you got to live and die by it. But putting them in better positions, and like you said, nickel is that base package. You can't always get into your exotic blitzes if you're stuck in those packages based on what the offense is giving you. But those guys get paid a lot more money than I do, and I think you got to figure it out. Why can't you sit Devin White? If he's the biggest liability in the passing game, why can't you sit him? If you're having trouble getting home with 4, why can't you keep somebody in there and put their hand in the dirt? Like, why? Like, why do you have to? Why? Tell me why. Why can't you sit Devin White? You can. I just wouldn't. I
why?
Wouldn't.
Why?
I think the speed he has, the playmaking ability that they do have. And again, I know coverage is where they struggle. Levante is actually really good in coverage. Like you said, maybe not so good when he turns around and he's chasing, but it's on the coaches to put him in better positions. I mean, this guy was drafted that high. You can't say, oh man, well, he just can't do it. I guess we gotta switch to something else.
Why?
I think he can. I think he can. He just has to be better. You can't sit here and say, okay, we're going to take a guy like this and then take him off the field when he has the amount of speed and playmaking ability that he has.
But he doesn't. That's the thing. He doesn't have playmaking ability in coverage. He doesn't. I'm with you. Look, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Like, I want him on the field too. But, you wish in one hand and shit in the other, see which one fills up first. Like, I can wish Devin White, because of his draft stash, because of his speed, because of his leadership, because of his intangibles, would be on the field at all times. But if a team keeps coming at you and you keep failing, not like game after game, it's like play after play after play, something needs to be done. Do you just make him an outside linebacker, or do you just make him blitz like 8 out of every 10 third downs or 8 every 10 passing situations? Just stick him in the A gap and make him go. And then
okay, I think there's 2 parts to this in my mind. One is who do you trust that you could put out on the field in place of Devin White to increase the pass rush? I mean, if the pass rush has been anemic, except for blitzing, which, like you said, I think it was the last couple of games. This was before the Saints game, but it was like we had 7 sacks in the last 3, and 4 of them were from Devin White. So the pass rush, the defensive linemen have not been good. No. So then who would you put out there that you trust more than you would a Devin White, where you could bring him or you could drop? I mean, that's the question, right? I mean, it's the risk aversion, but also what's the upside? I mean, are you going to put Anthony Nelson out there? Are you going to bring in another nose tackle? What would you do?
I'd blitz Devin White 8 out of 10 times.
That's
what I'd do. I'd hide him and do what he does best. Hell, if this continues, he's just going to become like a faster version of Quan Alexander, and I'm just going to. And then when JPP or Shaq doesn't come back next year, I put Devin White on edge.
Yeah,
and use his speed there. See how that works out. Probably work out as best as Ali Marpette at center, which was a disaster. But I don't know. Something needs to be done. Now, of course, the dream scenario is that he works on it and becomes better. That is not his game. Running backwards, trying to cover tight ends and things like that. It drives me nuts where he's so focused on getting back to his spot that a guy can run right through his zone and he doesn't cover him and the quarterback just throws to the guy and then he'll come up and make the tackle, for the 12-yard gain. But he had to get back to his spot in case there was somebody coming, he had to close that window in front of the safeties behind me. And it's like, well, this is your zone and there's a guy in it. Like, you might want to, look at him at least, like make a noise, make a scary noise. Like, try to make him drop the ball. So, yeah, something needs to be done. I do have the faith in the coaches, even though, we've kind of banged on about their game. But I have the faith in their coaches and stuff. I think was it Todd Bowles? I think Todd Bowles said this week that he was happy with Devin White's coverage. And I almost drove to his house and punched him in the mouth. I'm like, don't lie to me like that again. Like, yeah. So that's not true. I didn't try to punch him in his mouth. All right. That's not true. Okay, this is bloop-a-boo. Here we go. Rolling to the last third of the show. It's only been an hour and 15 minutes. I was worried this might go a little short. Haha. All right, so when the Buccaneers take on the Panthers Sunday at 1:00, what are you looking for? What are you hoping to see? What are the matchups? Everything. Just what do you think is going to happen Sunday?
Yeah, I got a few. Let me give you my first one. And it just cut me off whenever. Give me the playoff music. I'm good with that.
Oh,
dang, I'm already out. No.
I was just practicing.
Okay, good. Yeah, it was a little off pitch, so just work on that while I'm doing this.
That's it, man. That's the best it's gonna get. I'm sorry, man. You're gonna have to deal with that failure.
Fine.
That disappointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brent, where are you, Brent?
Yeah, right.
Offensive line has to step up. Please, dear God, I hope that Ali Marpette's back. I'm hopeful. I really am. They just have to step up. And listen, like we said, Panthers don't, they're not the best on the defensive line, but they've been playing as a team, really close. They've been in some really close games. They're a lot better than their 4-game losing streak would suggest. Took the Chiefs to the wire, took the Saints to the wire, won some good games against Arizona and Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
Coverage still stinks. Their offense is fine. But I was a little bit impressed, and maybe I'm just seeing things, but I was a little bit impressed with their pass rush against the Chiefs. If you watch the snaps there, it's Patrick Mahomes that's making a lot of those plays. The defensive line was in the backfield a lot in that game. So this could be one of those games where the Bucs kind of lull to sleep. Oh, we don't have to worry about the pass rush. And then before you know it, it's three sacks or 2 sacks, and you got Tom Brady shooken up a little bit. So I think it's just something. The offensive line didn't look their best. Obviously was dealing with injuries, but you got guys like Derek Brown on the line, second in QB pressures by rookies. Brian Burns, who had a good game in his first matchup. So if Ali Marpette goes, that's a big concern for me. Or if Ali Marpette can't go, that's a big concern.
Continue.
Okay. Defense. This is, like I said, Ren, this is their get right game. The other two, that was just practice. This is their get right game.
They're in double secret probation.
Yes. Yeah. Let's face it. Bucs defense, it's not looked good the last couple of games. They're not playing up to the talent that they have, the standard that they've set for themselves. So this is the game. They got to get right. They had 5 sacks on Teddy in their first game. He tossed 2 picks. He coughed up a fumble. I just about cursed on your show. But I listen, I like what Teddy Bridgewater does when he's got time. So don't give him time. Pressure him. He's not been good against pressure, or the passes that he's completed have been very short under pressure. So, man, Packers game is the upside. Chargers is the downside. I'm taking the upside every time. Blitz them the whole game. Bring pressure as much as you can. Yeah, your front 4 have not been very good at getting home. So don't rely on them. Don't be like, oh yeah, this is probably the game they're gonna just magically get better. Well, they haven't been. So let's scheme right on. Okay. Then here's my last thing.
This is the game. This is the game. Okay.
This is the game. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the run game, man, you got to get it going. Having Tom Brady drop back like 40 or 50 times is just not the recipe for success. And I know that this is a passing identity offense, and I would love for it to be that. But the reality is based on game flow, but also the lack of run game. The Saints just pinned their ears back and came after Tom Brady. And the trend that I'm noticing is when Tom Brady sacked 3 times, he's really, really struggled. You know, you look at the first game against the Saints, he tossed 2 picks. One was a pick 6. He looked bad. You look at the Bears game, he did not look himself. He looked jumpy. You know, there was the whole 4 debacle. And then, of course, you got this game against the Saints, 3 picks, and a couple of them were pretty ugly. So if you can get the run game going, it takes some pressure off of Brady having to be superhero and stand in the pocket. And I think that balance could be a really good complement for all the weapons we have in the passing game.
All right. Is there any more?
No, that's it. I'm a talker. I'm sorry. I'm a talker.
No. I just know that wasn't it at all. I just wanted you to give all your points before I went into mine. God, I haven't really even thought about this. I am looking for the Bucs to run the ball more than 5 times. I am looking for Tom Brady and this offense to be very pissed off and take it out on the Panthers defense. I'm looking for this defense to be very pissed off and take it out on the Panthers offense. I don't want to. I've called for blowouts a couple of times this year and have been wrong both times. One was Chicago, one was the Chargers game. So I don't want to call for a blowout, but I think that this is the game where the ship gets righted. Not that, I'm not saying the defense gets right. And, it's just after that embarrassment of what happened to the Saints, this being a division game, no Christian McCaffrey, no pass rush, a terrible secondary, and the Panthers. Look, they play hard. Matt Rule can take a bunch of strangers and get them all to roll the boat in one direction very quickly. Okay. But they just don't have the talent. They don't have the talent in the offensive line. They don't have the talent. The wide receivers, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, they're all flyers. Like, they all can probably keep up. Well, they all can keep up with Jamel Dean in a 40-yard dash. I don't think there's anybody in the defense that can keep up with those 3 guys. But the problem is Teddy doesn't like to push the ball down the field. It's not that he's being safe. That's just not Brady's offense. And by Brady, I mean the offensive coordinator for the Panthers, who, if everyone remembers, he was the passing coordinator for the LSU Tigers. And Joe Burrow had the greatest offensive season by a quarterback ever in the history of college football. So it's not really his style in the offense they like to run. I'm going to sort of use your words. I'm looking for the defensive offense to get right in this game. And I think that they're going to be very aggressive right off the bat. And as long as they don't get beat over the top, like on the very first drive, I think they'll continue to do it. And you'll feel the momentum build and the trust and all this come back together. Now, if Todd Bowles comes out with their hair on fire and Rule and Brady, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, think this is going to come and take a shot over the top and get it right away, it could take a little while for the defense sort of to recover in this one. But I'm looking for these guys to snap and clear. And I think the Bucs could win big. I really do. And just sort of manhandle the Panthers, not necessarily score-wise is bad, but manhandle the Panthers as like what the Saints did to us on Sunday night, where if like the score may not be as lopsided as the Sunday night game, but if you watch the game, you were like, wow, like the Bucs, like, okay, now I see why everyone was picking the Bucs as the best team in football or the best team in the NFC, or or had a shot at being the number 1 seed in the NFC, before the Saints game. So I think this, again, to use your term, I think it's a get right week for the Buccaneers.
Has to be, because it doesn't get any easier next couple weeks.
No, it doesn't. All right. There we go. Finish the show up. Our predictive MVPs. What this means is basically who's going to have the best game for the Buccaneers: offense, defense, kicker, special teams, long snapper, Gatorade boy, offensive coordinator. No, it's just players.
Gatorade boy for sure.
Yeah. He keeps his red and blue straight, man. Hey, never give Mike Evans blue Gatorade. He will rip your head off. I don't know if that's true at all.
Okay, I was like, whoa, breaking news.
Little training camp info. No, I don't know if that's true at all. Who you got? Who do you think is going to be the star of this game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I honestly, this one's a little bit hard for me because, and I've stopped doing predictions the last couple of weeks. I got burned in one of the games because I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this is gonna all 5 things happen. So I got really confident the next week, and then like none of them happen. In part of it is the Bucs have not been consistent lately. So this one's a little hard, but I'm gonna go out on a limb because I think this is a get right game, and because I think the scheme is gonna be aggressive. I'm going with Devin White this week. I think he's got a big game. I think he's potentially going to get 2 sacks, double-digit tackles, maybe a pass defense or something. Oh, a pass defense. That'd be great.
That would be great.
Maybe that could happen.
A pass defense on a well-thrown ball, not one that's like behind the receiver and it hits him like in the hip.
Use him where he's good, which is his blitzing ability and moving forward. So I'm taking Devin White this game. Who do you have?
Again, I haven't thought about it. Brent always hates this. He does it. I'm like, I don't know. Last week I picked Tom Brady because I thought that he was pissed about the first Saints game, that, he's in competition for most TD passes with Drew Brees. And for these uber competitor guys, like, you like to bury your closest competition, like you like to have your best games when you're playing, the person who's compared to you the most in the press. And you never say it out loud. You never talk to them, but you watch the Kobe's and the Jordans and even the Brady's, that's why he didn't shake Nick Foles' hands, because he wanted to embarrass Nick Foles for the Super Bowl loss. And he lost the game, so he ran off the field because he was so pissed, because he probably would have punched Nick Foles in the face if he had to go over there and talk to him. Which is, behind Sean Payton, Nick Foles does have the most punchable face in the NFL. But who am I going to pick? Devin White could be a good pick because he is going to get double-digit tackles, because they're going to throw the ball to his guy a lot, and he's going to tackle him. Maybe, the Barrett Ruud style, where it's 7 yards downfield or 12 yards downfield. Like, you have a lot of tackles as a middle linebacker, but they're all tight ends and receivers. That means you got burnt in coverage. It's not, you're not tackling. It's not 9 tackles, and they're all against Davis. So I think they're going to try some exotic thing. I'm going to go with Carlton Davis. I think Carlton Davis comes up big, makes some big splash plays, maybe gets the whole, train rolling. Just shuts the guy down. Now, if I'm hoping that Teddy, this is what I hope happens, that they take Davis and make him follow Robbie Anderson around, because I have DJ Moore on my fantasy team, and Teddy Bridgewater does not throw to DJ Moore. He just doesn't do it. It's taken me 8 games to realize it, but he just doesn't do it. Like, he doesn't. He'll get like 3 catches a game, and Robbie Anderson will get like 9. And so if you put Davis on Robbie Anderson, I think Bridgewater's going to force the ball to Robbie Anderson, and then the show is on. We'll see, best on best, ones on ones. We'll see what happens. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm going with Carlton Davis. We're both going defense, ironically enough, after that debacle that we watched on Sunday night. Hey, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, man, it was so much fun. Brandon and I were super grateful for the invite, and you guys were one of the podcasts we kind of looked up to, and we're grateful for the input and advice when we started. So thanks again, you to Brent as well, and we're just super grateful, man.
Yeah, before you take off, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where you're at, where you're talk a little about your co-host, where people can find you, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man, it's me and Brandon Ricketts. We host a Bucs podcast, and
his last name's Ricketts.
Ricketts, yes. Hey, at least it's better than Fink or Frink or Flink or whatever you call me this podcast.
I haven't got your name wrong once. Check the tape.
Okay, true, very true. So we host Beware the Bay podcast, and it's live Tuesday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Central Time, on Bucs Report Facebook page. And you can find as well the audio version of the podcast at Beware the Bay podcast, and you can follow us at Beware the Bay.
Thanks. I'll be honest with you, man. I have really scaled back my podcast listening. Sort of this season. Now I only have like 3 or 4, where I used to have like 12 to 15. And I only listen to about 2, and I don't even listen to ours anymore. The megalomaniac narcissist is finally like I've heard myself talk enough after like 5 years of this. I don't even listen to our own podcast anymore. I used to. We do a 3.5-hour show during the off season, and then I'd stay, in the call here with Brent and wait till he put it up, and then I would listen to it and stay up to like 4 a.m, like right after I just listened to everything I just said. So I would say it was just amazing for me in this, to be able to hear myself out. I could find myself on the internet and talk Bucs football. That was amazing. But after like 4 years, it's like, nope, I just really like to listen to myself talk. But very long-winded way to say that I'm impressed with your Buccaneer knowledge. I like how you came prepared. I wish that you were back here in Tampa and I would have bumped into you at, well, I don't know, a bar somewhere. I don't know if Jesus doesn't let you do that. Just kidding. Then maybe I wouldn't have to jumped on here and have my whole life turned upside down by having to go like 4 times a week on the Pewtercast. You're a very knowledgeable fan. You're well thought out. I think I like how you don't get upset, but you do have a good sense of humor. And part of is it okay to say? I don't know, say it's okay, but is it correct to say becoming a priest?
Pastor.
Okay, pastor. Okay. And becoming a pastor is the ability to listen. And that's probably the best, the most important thing of being a man of the cloth, a person of the cloth, a pastor, and then be able to decipher what people are saying and then, put it back to them in a way where they can draw a lesson from it and make them feel better. Because, I grew up Catholic and, we had to go to church through school, and it was just terrible. But when you got one-on-one with priests or pastors or someone of the cloth or a nun, and I was always amazed by their capacity to listen, to stay calm, and then process all of that. And then sometimes, they point to the Bible and like, okay, great, okay, that's fine. like, can you just I don't care what Matthew said. Can you just
if we bring this into it? So
yeah. So I'm not gonna go read the passage in the Bible. Just tell me, like make me feel better. And I think that's a really, really special gift that's hard to find. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Best way to find me is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down in Buccaneers football. You can follow Brent at Brent Allen Live on Twitter and Facebook, and the Pewtercast is at the Pewtercast across all social medias. If you email us, we keep saying we might use it on a show, but we haven't so far this year. So, cross your fingers, and probably not going to happen. But for Rendax and for Micah Frink,
boom. You got it.
Saved it till the end. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And hope we see a win against the Panthers, and go Bucs.